Today's session will be presented by Matt Shosey. Matt is the CEO and co-founder of CareerView XR, an award-winning immersive media and virtual reality platform. Together with his wife and co-founder Katie, they have a team dedicated to expanding awareness and understanding of career pathways. In this session, Matt will define and explore the use of immersive technologies and how these tools can be effectively used in workplace settings. At the conclusion of the presentation, we ask you to complete an evaluation, and that's going to help us inform future activities for TIP. We also invite you to stay online with Talk with TIP about real-world applications or considerations about what we learn here today. So, Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth.
Mhm.
So my name is Matt Shosey. I am the CEO and co-founder of CareerView XR. And I am, I guess, middle-aged, Caucasian male. Heritage is French and random European ancestry, but I have short dark brown hair, beard, and a mustache, and I'm wearing a jacket that's been described as salmon or I think Connecticut red or New England red was one of the things that was mentioned. But anyway, I'm very delighted to be here today and be sharing with you about CareerView XR and specifically how that has transitioned us into the work that we're doing with the Training Innovation Project with the University of Kentucky. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I do want to make sure to mention some of the other partners that are involved in the TIP project. So right now we're looking at a screen with a series of logos. These are the other partners that have committed to the Training Innovation Project. They are the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, the Council of State Administrators of Vocational Rehabilitation, Kentucky Hospital Association, Kentucky Career Center for Vocational Rehabilitation, Kentucky Nurses Association, the Kentucky Chamber. But today, what I really wanted to do here is share about a journey. It's one that I'm still on. CareerView XR, Beth shared a little bit about what our company is, what we do. Really, we are focused on creating awareness of different career pathways, helping individuals of all abilities be able to understand the world of work, what's out there, and how they can get engaged and involved. But we didn't start there. The journey that brought me to being here today actually started quite a bit earlier. And I'm going to share a little bit about that personal experience because it actually started in college. I remember distinctly sitting in an advanced math course, and I had an instructor that went out of her way to make sure that I understood the material. I was really struggling with it. I had switched my major my third time, and I'm in this class, and it's tough. It's all abstract concepts, and I spent a lot of time working directly with that professor. And I remember distinctly being in her office one day. I was looking down at my book and I was asking a question. And this is probably 3 months into the semester. She turns to me and says, "Can you please look at me when you're talking? I can't hear very well." And it absolutely floored me. I hadn't had that sort of interaction with someone that had low hearing before, and my prior assumptions about what that was and what it meant were really kind of checked at the door. She could barely hear, but she listened better than any professor I've had before or since. So I remember that distinctly because it really got me thinking about this differently. Well, what are those situations where we're working with individuals, we assume there's a limitation, but really that assumption is the limitation itself. I remember in my early career, I worked part-time as a direct support professional. And in that role, kind of my thinking was kind of rooted in this idea of helping people who have less, being able to do more. Toward the end of my time working in that part-time role, I had been providing some residential supports, and there was one individual in particular that on one of my last shifts, he was on the autism spectrum, and we were just sharing about the prior years that we'd worked together and some of the favorite things, and I couldn't really remember a whole lot about the specifics. He remembered down to the detail of what I wore and the song we were listening to in the car the first time that we went to Burger King together. So that was, another one of those scenarios where my perception was really checked at the door, and learning that there is a wealth of ability that goes far beyond what we might see at the very surface. Years later, we kind of encountered this again. I was actually a mid-career professional, and I was working in higher ed, so no longer working as a DSP. But my wife, Katie, she actually worked as a job coach at the same company where I had been a DSP. And this was a role where she was getting really frustrated because she was getting to know these clients and understanding their abilities. But the job was one of those consolation jobs. It was changing sheets in a hotel room. And she knew that they were capable of and deserved a lot more. And I share those three stories with you because they really were transformational in shifting how we started looking at our community and at how we build and grow our company. So as we've developed the Career View XR platform, we've really been focusing on how do we design this to the best of our capacity so that it is an accessible tool for all. And as we started doing that, we really started learning that individual disabilities are often excluded from the employment conversation, and we can leverage what we're doing on the platform and everything we're doing in the immersive media industry to really trying to shine a spotlight on that and flip the script. So my role specifically in TIP, I will be supporting the evaluation of different technologies and solutions to help vocational rehabilitation professionals use immersive technology to serve that dual customer model. The outcomes are going to be aligned to upskilling capacity to serve both individuals and organizations, empathizing with needs on both sides of the employment equation, and assisting with identifying and implementing new approaches to immersive technology. I do want to make sure to, a lot of times with new technology, people get fascinated with the features of the tech, and the features get kind of convoluted and mixed up with what solutions are. I want to be very clear that we believe technology is a tool. People are the ones who implement solutions. And some of the things we're going to be talking about, there are some incredible technology tools that exist today in the immersive tech arena. They're often not widely understood or used, which means that fundamentally we have an awareness problem. And I'm hoping that by sharing some of the examples that I share today, these are things that you can start taking a look at, and we can be getting your perspective and insights into how are these tools helping solve the problems that are being brought your way, both from individuals seeking employment and from employers that are wanting to understand how can we make our environment more inclusive, more accessible, so that it really amplifies and maximizes outcomes for all. Um, Now, I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir here when I talk about things like curb cut effect, but it's so important that I think it bears repeating. When we design to overcome constraints, we create better outcomes for everyone. Um, Curb cuts, yes, they were originally designed for individuals in wheelchairs, but they help people pushing strollers. They help the FedEx delivery person who's pushing a cart. It's an incredible design that afterthought seems like, wow, why haven't we always done this? I love examples like that where disability really has paved the way for innovation. And there's lots of those examples. Speech to text, you're seeing the closed captioning um, on the slides right now. My wife and I, we both, and our kids, we all have full hearing, but we watch Netflix with the captions on consistently because we get more out of it. There's less distraction. Things like automatic doors and audiobooks, cruise control. There are so many different technologies that we kind of take for granted, and a lot of us use that really were inspired through disability. Um, I do want to though talk specifically about this awareness gap because there are a lot of solutions out there that have not hit mainstream that shining a spotlight on some of those could really help amplify the message. Um, the what we're really working to overcome with Career VXR is limited awareness of career pathways. But as we've been doing that, as I mentioned before, we noticed that individual disabilities are often not part of the conversation, And as we spoke with businesses and organizations, we found that a lot of that is due to a misunderstanding of the disability spectrum and preconceived notions that are focused on limitations or constraints. And on both sides, job seekers and organizations, there's really a lot of times a limited awareness of the immersive technologies and assistive technology that can be implemented. So I first want to talk about a project that is adjacent to TIP. This is another Disability Innovation Fund funded project called XR for VR. Now, XR for VR stands for Extended Reality for Vocational Rehabilitation. This is a federally funded project through Bismarck State College, and the approach is to modify our existing technologies at CareerView XR to increase awareness across both individuals with disabilities and employers to help demystify the world of how do we bring assistive tech into the workplace, and how do we include how do we practice inclusive hiring methods and inclusive employment practices that make the job site more accessible to everyone. The primary outcome of the XR for VR project is achieving competitive integrated employment. So that concept of individuals with disabilities working alongside everyone else, receiving competitive wages, doing the same work for the same pay, which is critically important in this arena. So how the XR for VR project works. This is our first example of immersive technology used in a voc rehab setting. It's another dual customer model, just like TIP. It supports individuals by making them aware of career opportunities, providing awareness of assistive technology that can be used. And also, there are some wraparound services being offered by the college administering the program that's supporting things, self advocacy, things like interviewing skills, that sort of thing. So, things that are supplemental to what our voc rehab offices are doing, but they take it a step further, and it really is grounded in the immersive technology that we're using. For business and organizations, what this is offering is access to untapped talent pools that they haven't been considering before, helping implement assistive technology and become aware of assistive tech that's out there and available, and even modeling and seeing other employers that are modeling inclusive employment practices. So I do have a couple of demos that I'm going to share, but I'm first going to talk about uh, the first project that we did as part of the XR for VR initiative. And that was filming in real world scenarios, real workplace scenarios, showing assistive technology in action. And we did this in a way where it can be navigated like a home virtual tour, but it also has video clips where you can see a piece of assistive tech being used. It also has an interactive 3D model where you can kind of engage with a hands-on without being hands-on type interaction. And it really focuses on emphasizing some of those low-cost solutions that have little to no implementation barriers for employers. So I'm going to jump into that experience next here. And give me just a moment while I pull my screen over. Okay, so what we see right now is a menu with some tiles that says find your path, browse categories to discover empowering assistive solutions. So within these categories, we have vision, hearing, there's an option to view all, we have mobility, communication. As we jump into these experiences, we'll jump into vision. So I've clicked on vision. It brings us to our next screen where we have a variety of tools that can be used for individuals that might have low vision or cataracts or any number of scenarios where they need some sort of enhancement to be able to perform a role. So we see on the screen portable monitor, iPad, portable video magnifier. I'm going to take a look at that because I haven't seen that piece of assistive technology before. So as I get into this scene, I see that there's an individual. He's standing holding a keypad. He has a monitor in front of him. And there's another individual who's looking over his shoulder on the work. There's a robotic arm behind him. And I can actually rotate this scene. And I see as I rotate the scene, we're actually in, looks like a classroom or robotics lab of some sort. On this scene, there are different elements that looks like little icons and graphics. So if I click on one of those, we get a little bit of information about portable video magnifier, what it is. So we will just play a really quick video. The video also has text along with it, but I will just go ahead and play this. We watch this quick clip, and then we'll jump into other features of this experience. So in that video, we saw this portable magnifier being used, and actually being used in the workplace, being used in a classroom setting, and the portability and accessibility of that device. I love this particular device. It's a relatively low cost piece of technology, and it's something that in a lot of settings, we work with a lot of manufacturers. When they see things like this, it starts sparking that aha moment that, oh, wow, we don't have to completely retrofit our entire operation. There are some really incredible pieces of assistive technology that we can use that will help with overcoming some of those mild to moderate barriers that are truly preventing inclusive employment. Also within the assistive tech tour, I'm going to open the main menu. In here, there are options for visiting the websites, looking at a tutorial. I can also go to a scene selection where I can jump straight from scene to scene. And I'm going to jump in. I'm going to click on, so I see a list of a bunch of different scenes that list assistive technology. I'm going to click on anti-vibration gloves. And as I go in here, I see another piece of assistive tech that I wouldn't have necessarily thought was assistive technology. But what we've learned through some of the partners we've been working with is that there are barriers. Someone with a tactile sensitivity might not be able to work with a particular piece of machinery, but if they have these anti-vibration gloves, that's something that can make that role make the tasks more accessible. So I'm back in this scene. I see my information icons again. I see an individual who's wearing gloves. He's operating knobs on what looked to be a conveyor belt. And I see an option that says 3D. When I click on the 3D option, that actually pulls up this piece of assistive technology. And I see the gloves, and this is not just a picture of the gloves. I can actually rotate this image. So every single one of these pieces of assistive technology, you can interact with it to get hands-on without being hands-on. And this is really an effort to help demystify and familiarize both individuals with disabilities and the organizations that we're supporting about what are these pieces of assistive technology, and really letting them get to know them so that they become top of mind. And when they hear about a limitation or a barrier, it's not, oh, that's going to cause a problem. It's, oh, I know a solution that I can bring to the table. We are somewhat limited on time, so unfortunately I don't have an opportunity to dive through a lot of these assistive technology tools, but this is a publicly available resource, and the link is included in the presentation. So I'm going to close this window and come back to our presentation, because I want to talk about the other piece of the XR for VR project that we're really excited about. And that is a project where we're creating these immersive tours that allow individuals to navigate through different real world job sites. But the tours that we're creating are done on actual job sites with employers who have really done incredible things with inclusive employment and hiring, as well as the implementation of assistive technology. One in particular is Kildare Mountain Manufacturing. They've done a great job of having a lot of inclusive practices in action, assistive technology applied in the workplace. And what we're finding is that now that we've created some visibility around what they're doing, they're starting to become an influencer of their peer organizations and employers in the industry, encouraging them to be thinking differently about the different types of assistive tech and approaches that can be used toward implementing the technologies. Oops. Oh, I lost my link to the Kildare Mountain manufacturing experience. So this particular experience is just like the one that we saw before, but it is in an actual job site, and it is a series of about 10 to 15 different scenes that actually brings us into a real workplace scenario, and there are actual workers performing their roles. The next example that I want to share is one that we worked on with, are just starting to work on with a company called Vanna Adventure Vans. Now they are also a manufacturer, but they're a really small shop. So this is an experience that's currently in production. They have really focused on hiring a neurodiverse workforce and creating environments that have been adapted for the needs of their employees, and really focusing on what are those strengths that the employees bring to the table so that they can really succeed in those roles. This story is going to be a little bit different, not so much not so much focused on the immersive technology, but more focused on the story of one particular individual who, when he heard about this project, was very eager to share. So Roman is an employee at Vanna Vans who's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He's going to be included in this in the production. He's given us permission to share that. But he was originally working on the production line and found that there were a number of scenarios and environments that would trigger an episode. That's the sort of thing that might end employment at a lot of employers. But he was committed to staying because he loves the work that Vanna does. Side note, Vanna is a van customization company that create custom camper vans, but their current run is actually creating wheelchair vans. So another layer to the accessibility side there. But he loves his job at Vanna. He loves working there, and Vanna valued him as an employee, both as an individual and his commitment to the company vision. So they worked on creating a production adjacent role where he's still involved in the job and getting it done and contributing to the production, but he doesn't have the constant risk of things that are going to create an abrupt distraction that might trigger an episode for him. It's in hindsight, I mean, it sounds like a relatively simple thing to do, but how often does something like that get chalked up to a behavioral issue that results in termination? Vanna chose a different path, and we are incredibly excited to share that story. Um, I do want to make sure to stress that, we believe that there's not one singular approach here. We know that individual disabilities, it's a wide spectrum across mobility, vision, hearing, neurodiverse. You could go on and on. But these principles of how do we approach with assistive technology? How do we approach um, with inclusive employment practices, and how do we share that through immersive technology? That's something that we really hope begins to transcend. There are many more of these experiences to come. There will be approximately 8 additional experiences produced within the next 6 to 8 months. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at the XR for VR project, and if this can support you in your role as a voc rehab professional, please do that. Terms of kind of talking about why awareness matters, cost of not knowing about pathways, we know that that's incredibly high. We miss talents, there's underemployment, we have system inefficiencies, and creating exposure to these experiences really normalizes the tools and practices to make them part of the dialogue. And that's the goal of that particular immersive tech solution. Moving on, I want to talk about XR for perspective. There are a number of companies that are doing some really incredible work helping with empathy building and understanding by simulating disabilities that allow those of us that don't have a hearing or a vision issue, or maybe a need to understand what's it like to learn how to use a wheelchair. There are all sorts of cool immersive technology solutions that are out there that really are grounded in the real world. And there are a number of these that I'm actually sharing. We don't have time to dive into the examples, but I'm sharing a series of links here for vision, cognitive, and mobility immersive technology solutions that really allow you to see and experience what it looks like, what it feels like to be in that role. This is not an explicit endorsement of any of these. We are currently evaluating a lot of these solutions, but our hope is to find some really powerful experiences that can become part of a training course that allows you to have a better and more complete tool set that allows you to do these sorts of things. I do want to share a bit on familiarity and confidence. One more story I want to share. is that XR can be really powerful for perspective and creating creating comfortability with different environments. One of my favorite stories about immersive tech in the disability arena is with a partner that we've worked with for a number of years. Her name is Shannon Putman, and she worked with a student in special education who, at the beginning of the year, she always asked families, "What do you want to accomplish in what do you want to accomplish this year?" And one of the families said, "We want to be able to sit down to a full meal at our favorite restaurant." She decided she was going to try to tackle this with immersive media. So she took a 360-degree video camera, filmed an experience at this restaurant, and over the course of the next 6 months, spent time every day working with the student, putting them into that scenario, getting them exposed to it, and trying to make it just 1 minute longer. At the end of the semester, that student was able to spend a full hour and 13 minutes in the restaurant with their family. And it was the first time that it ever happened. That is an incredible story of this technology really innovating. One of the fun follow-ons there is later that year, that student actually went to an overnight trip to Washington, D.C. without even without their parents present. Um, XR can also be used as assistive technology in skill building and environmental familiarity, safety training, repetitive practice. This article is a very interesting one. I'm sharing a link to an article about how virtual reality is helping adults with developmental disabilities. Would encourage you to explore that. There's also some really incredible research on how VR, immersive technology, can improve empathy, support training, enable inclusive workplace design. And I want to make sure that you have access to these resources. And I do need to give a shout out to Pete. They actually helped provide a number of these resources to include in the presentation. But the key takeaway with all of this is that we want to make sure that you're aware of the technologies that are available within the extended reality and immersive media arena. Because when you become aware of those tools, then you have the opportunity to learn about them and increase your own familiarity and confidence, and then really be able to identify where are those effective opportunities for implementing the technology for both individuals and to help overcome the barriers and misperceptions that businesses and organizations have about these things. Um, Both individuals and businesses need your expert guidance to both identify and implement the technologies. As a voc rehab professional, you really play a critical role in helping overcome that gap that's there. Um, Couple more resources. There is an evolving XR ecosystem that really has a ton of information on training, on accessibility, on authoring platforms. And I do want to emphasize as well that a lot of people have tried virtual reality, augmented reality in the past, and may have gotten a bad taste for it. I do want to I want to emphasize that the industry has really matured, and a lot of those first movers have moved on to other things. And there are some really incredible companies who've been innovating and iterating on this for 10, 20, 30 plus years. So there's some really valuable content out there, and we're going to really try to distill that and make sure that you've got um, access to the best and most reliable solutions. So I've got a series of different industry providers here that you'll have in a follow-up in this slide. I do want to make sure to emphasize too that XR it's more than just visual elements. Things like rich audio descriptions that like Netflix and the audio description project provide. And there's also starting to be a convening between immersive media and artificial intelligence. There are a couple of really cool pieces of technology right now that actually, through the lens of smart glasses, it will actually provide real world, real time descriptions of what different pathways, or excuse me, not different pathways, of what the real world environment in front of someone with a visual impairment might look like. I'm really excited to see where these things head. And these are some of the, to my understanding, some of the newest developments. But we're still continuing to dive down this path. I do want to make sure you're aware of a few different national initiatives. There's an Immersive Technology for the American Workforce Act bill that is currently being considered in both the House and the Senate. We've had an opportunity to work with both the Office of Disability Employment Policy and the Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology. I do want to make a shout out again to Pete for helping provide some of the resources for this presentation. We also worked with CAST.org and the Association of Assistive Technology Act programs. So want to shout out to all of those, as well as the XR for VR project, who gave me the thumbs up to share about their project today. And thank you to Tip too. One thing that I really want to remind you about, to be mindful of, is just follow the tech golden rule. Technology that you choose to implement should solve more problems than it creates. That will help you take this a lot further with a lot more individuals and a lot more organizations. And I know that we are gone past my time, so I am going to just from here say I want to invite you to explore. This is a journey. I'm still on it. There are a ton of tools available in this presentation, and I'm more than happy to dive into conversations, answer questions, or even look into things that may not be on my radar that you think are important and should be in front of vocational rehabilitation professionals nationally. So please stay connected. There will be more to come soon. Thank you.